The LA Kings come alive late and stay perfect on the road. We talk about a thrilling win in Columbus and more on this episode of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the LA Kings road winning streak is still alive thanks to an amazing third period comeback. If you missed it or if you turned off your television after two periods, shame on you. But don't worry, we will tell you all about the Kings' latest win, which was certainly a special one. But a quick couple of game notes going into the contest. Phoenix Copley was in net for the LA Kings, a bit of a surprise to me. The Kings do have back-to-back games coming up this Saturday and Sunday. It would make sense that we'd see Copley in one of those games, most likely the Saturday game on Long Island against the Islanders. But Todd McClellan decided to get Copley back in the net against Columbus. Blake Lizotte did miss his sixth straight game with an undisclosed injury, but he is on the road trip with the team, and so we expect to see him sometime in the next three games. As for the forward and defensive pairings for LA, same lineup we've seen over the past six games. As for a recap of the game in Columbus, things didn't start well for LA. They did fall behind 1-0. Columbus scoring a power play goal after a Quentin Byfield retaliation penalty. I thought it was a weak call, in my opinion. The Blue Jackets player embellished a little shove after he had given Quentin a shove, but the referee unfortunately bought it and didn't call a dive as well. And the Blue Jackets took advantage of their situation. So it was 1-0 after one. Second period, more Blue Jackets, and their top player, Johnny Gaudreau, would score on a breakaway after a Kings misplay to make it 2-0, and then it was Matthew Olivier scoring a goal, and it's 3-0 Blue Jackets, and the Kings are trailing by 3 going into the third period. And I remember telling myself at that point, I hadn't completely given up, but things obviously did not look good. And I just said, I hope they can at least come out strong, play a good, hard third period, get a goal or two, and at least take some momentum out of this game for the rest of the road trip. Well, turned out to be a little bit better than that, and it was in large part thanks to Phillip Danault, who would score just 23 seconds into that third period, and suddenly the Kings had life, and the Blue Jackets are thinking, oh no. Danault would strike again less than 5 minutes later, and the Kings would then take the lead. Not long after, Arthur Kaliev, a minute 30 later, scoring on a rebound, and suddenly we're tied at 3-3. There was still a lot of time left for the Kings to get the next goal, but they would not be able to do that. Instead, the game would go into overtime, and just 33 seconds into OT, Drew Doughty scores his sixth goal of the season, and the Kings would get the big come-from-behind win. As for Phillip Danault, his goals on the season, numbers 5 and 6 for him. Arthur Kaliev gets his sixth goal of the year as well. Kings win it again 4-3 in overtime, improving to 10-0 on the road, and they tie the NHL record for most consecutive road wins to start a season, joining the 2006-2007 Buffalo Sabres. The Kings also improved to 15-4-3 overall and move into second place in the Pacific Division with 33 points behind the Vegas Golden Knights, and now they actually have the same number of points as Vancouver, but the Kings have 4 games in hand on the Canucks. So they right now would get the tiebreaker, the advantage, and they're in second, and Vancouver is in third. Let's check out the game stats for this win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Again, wasn't the best game by any stretch for the Kings, but they did show a lot of heart and grit and remained confident that they could come back, and that's exactly what they did. Second straight game, the Kings have dominated a third period. But again, as far as the final stats in this one, Kings win it 4-3 in overtime. They outshot the Blue Jackets 39-29. And again, another big advantage in the third period as well. Kings do go 0-2 on the power play, where Columbus was 1-for-1. Face-offs, narrow advantage for the Kings, 29-28. Block shots favored LA as well, 17-12, with Columbus getting the advantage in hits with 15 to LA's 13. So the Kings again, second straight game that they needed a big third period after not a great start to pull out a victory. And again, the Kings getting a huge effort in the third. You want to start better, but at the same time, coming up big in the third period certainly is something the Kings can be proud of as well. I thought that they kind of got back to basics a little bit in that third period, whereas earlier in the game, maybe they were looking to set up plays. But in the third, it was like, the hell with that. Get the puck on net, crash the net, hunt down loose pucks. And that's exactly what the Kings did. Again, not you could say that that's not pretty hockey, but in a sense, though, it is. It is, in large part, a big part of hockey, and that's getting those hardworking goals. And you can't just always rely on your skill. Sometimes you got to outwork the opponent, and the Kings absolutely did that in that third period. As far as a historical kind of comeback for the Kings, it was LA's first 3-goal third period comeback in more than 16 years. Last time they did it, and I do remember this game, maybe some of you older fans will as well, November 10th of 2007. Kings beat the Dallas Stars at Staples Center 6-5. Kings were down 4-0 in this game. They scored 5 straight goals in the third period. Dustin Brown and Andrei Kopitar had goals, but there were also players like Alexander Frolov, Ladislav Nagy, and Scott Thornton that scored as well. Those are some names I haven't thought of in a while. In the end, Dallas actually did tie it up, send it into overtime, but Andrei Kopitar would score the overtime game winner. That was the last time the Kings had a third period rally down 3 or more goals. It is the 8th such victory in franchise history, the first on the road in more than 3 decades. Kings have now won 7 of 8. They also recorded their first win this season that went beyond regulation. LA had been 0-3 in games this season that went into either overtime or in a shootout. Let's get to the 3 stars of the game as selected by me. Our number 3 star is defenseman Vladislav Gavrikov. Had 2 assists in his return to Columbus, facing his old team for the first time. Nice to see the Kings defenseman chipping in offensively. I'm sure it was a special night for him to get those 2 points. And in addition to Gavrikov getting 2 assists, Matt Roy had a primary assist on Philip Deneau's first goal. And speaking of defensemen chipping in offensively, our number 2 star is Kings defenseman Drew Doughty with the overtime game winner, his 32nd career game-winning goal. Beautiful wrist shot after he and Adrian Kempe and Andrei Kopitar played keep away from the Blue Jackets. This was after Kopitar won the draw at center ice. The Kings never allowed Columbus to touch the puck before Drew Doughty scored the overtime game winner. He had an assist as well in this one. Actually, he did not. Just the goal for Drew Doughty. Our number 1 star, I think pretty obviously, is Philip Deneau with his 2 goals. Steady, reliable, hardworking, smart. Philip Deneau leading the comeback for LA. He's not flashy, but he just gets the job done, and more often than not is always doing the right things in the right place at the right time. And the goal, there was one goal where the puck got behind Elvis Merzlikins, the netminder, and Deneau stuck with it. Obviously there you play to the whistle, but I think being a veteran player, you also know by a goaltender's body language whether he actually has the puck covered up or not, or if it's still loose. I think Deneau absolutely sensed that, was able to finally track down that puck that was just sitting in the crease and able to get his stick on it just enough to get it over the goal line. 2 big goals over Philip Deneau, and he again is our number 1 star of the night in the big comeback against Columbus. Of course, as always, we're going to talk about what we liked and what we didn't like from the win over the Blue Jackets and talk about the night for goaltender Phoenix Copley. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event. I don't, because I use Gametime, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I have personally used Gametime to buy tickets to NHL and NFL games this season, and I can tell you the app is very easy to navigate and use. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the best price guaranteed. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. I love how you can view the seats before you buy it, so you know exactly what you're going to get when you arrive. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. All-in prices show you the total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps on the app. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. That is $150 if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. As much as we love betting on the NFL, you can bet on the NHL as well. Want to place a bet on the Kings to win their next game against the Montreal Canadiens? Think the over-under will be more or less than 6.5 goals? Well, just use the FanDuel app, which is very easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including point spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can bet on the NHL and the NFL all season long. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Hey, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On's national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Let's get into the night for Kings goaltender Phoenix Copley. I mentioned I thought it was a bit of a surprise that he got the start. But kind of like the Kings overall, he wasn't great, but came up big when it mattered most. Copley would stop 26 of 29 shots to record his 4th win of the season. He's 4-0-2 on the year. Not a bad record for a guy who hasn't been on top of his game, obviously, all season long. He has now recorded a win in his last 3 starts, so hopefully coming on here of late. The goals against average and the save percentage on the season, still not exactly where you'd want him to be. 3.03 GAA and an 873 save percentage, but the results have certainly been there as a team for the Kings. In his 7 games played, the Kings have points in all of them at 5-0-2. As for the goals he allowed in the game against Columbus, the first one was a shorthanded goal, but a shot that was kind of from near the boards. He saw it all the way, wasn't screened or deflected. I thought it was a very stoppable shot. So not a great goal allowed as far as the first goal against Phoenix Copley. Second goal, though, no chance for him on that one, really. A breakaway from an elite player, Johnny Gaudreau, all alone after a Kings miscue. So I don't blame him on that one. Third goal, Trevor Lewis turns it over in the Kings zone. Shot goes off Vladislav Gavrikov, and then the Blue Jackets were able to hunt down the rebound and get it in. I thought Copley's teammates need to be a little bit better in protecting the crease in that situation. So Copley did have some solid saves. There were some odd man rushes against, a partial breakaway as well, and he came up big in those situations. Again, didn't care for the first goal he allowed, but overall, not a bad showing for Phoenix Copley. And again, getting it done in that third period when he needed to be perfect, and he was to help the Kings get that comeback win. Let's talk about what we liked about the game in Columbus. Obviously, the result. Loved keeping that winning streak going. Loved seeing the Kings put their name in that record book. Loved that they didn't quit, believed in themselves, and went out and earned a win. They didn't get this win because Columbus just started making mistake after mistake. They took advantage of outworking Columbus. Those 3 goals in the third period were all hardworking goals. Get the puck on net, crash the net, find loose pucks, get rebounds. Love that the Kings obviously didn't have their A game, but still found a way to win. Again, there are going to be nights. Look, the Kings have a lot of skill, but there's going to be nights when you're going to need to outwork a team, especially in the playoffs. And certainly the Kings were able to do that against Columbus. Philip Deneau, I love how it's a different hero almost every night for the LA Kings. Philip Deneau against Columbus, Quentin Byfield against Colorado. Phoenix Copley gets a shutout, and Trevor Moore had a couple of goals against Montreal. Kevin Fiala gets a couple of goals against the Ducks. It's, again, different player, different night. We've talked about it a lot this season, but it's one of the huge keys for the LA Kings and why they've been so good this year. The scoring up and down the line, the depth scoring, 4 lines all contributing, and defense as well. It's been a huge part of why the Kings have been so good. And it's fun to see. It makes for good team chemistry when you've got, again, different guys on different nights. I don't think that anybody is necessarily kind of taking a backseat to see who's going to be the hero tonight. I think they kind of take the idea of, it's my turn to get the big goal tonight, that kind of a thing. So again, great to see different players showing up on different nights. We're going to talk more, or we actually did talk about Phoenix Copley again, but he was solid as well. So some good things certainly to take away from the Kings, the finish, the third period, the competitiveness, the fire that they had, not wanting to go out the way they were going with that road winning streak and able to keep it going. As far as things that we didn't like, I would say the Kings were not lucky to win this game, but they did make it hard on themselves, and they didn't have to. There are still mistakes, still missed opportunities, and you're going to have a few of those every game, but too many of them, I would say, for a team the caliber of the LA Kings in this game. The Kings once again allowed multiple odd man rushes off of turnovers. Now they have played those odd man rushes pretty well. That's, I guess, the silver lining, but the elite teams in the league are usually going to capitalize on those types of things. And again, some sloppy play. The breakaway by Johnny Gaudreau came because of King's mistakes. Anze Kopitar with a bit of an uncharacteristic bad pass into the skates of defenseman Jordan Spence, and then Spence kind of fumbled it and tried to get it over to, I think it was Adrian Kempe, kind of fanned on it, and Johnny Gaudreau was there. It went right to him, and he's down the ice to score on a breakaway. So that's an unforced error by the Kings. There was a point where Arthur Kaliyev had a wide open net on a misplay by the Columbus netminder. So that's not taking advantage of an unforced error in that situation. I thought being down in the game 1-0 and then 3-0, the Kings, I thought, passed up way too many shots in favor of trying to make plays and making passes. That was absolutely corrected in the third period, and you saw the results. So the Kings need to learn from that lesson. It's great to make great passing plays, and we certainly saw that, in the previous game, that great passing play between Kopitar, Kempe, and Byfield. But when you're down in a game, especially maybe halfway through the game by more than a goal, then that's when you need to just put it on net, hunt pucks, crash the net, get in front of that goaltender, make it difficult for him to see, and get those hard-working goals. They did that. I'm sure Todd McClellan hammered that message home in between the second and third periods, and they certainly listened and followed through on it in that third period. The power play is still an issue. 0 for 2 in the game against Columbus. The Kings are now 0 for 8 with the man advantage over the last 5 games. And they've been working on the power play a lot in practice, and they're not seeing the results. So I am concerned about this. It obviously needs to be better. Hopefully that can be corrected here in the near future. But there were some things certainly not to like about the Kings' performance. Again, there are the mistakes, the unforced errors, but in the end, a win is a win. The Kings went and I guess they grabbed victory from the jaws of defeat and overall made the plays they had to when it mattered most. But I think the one thing, yes, that I am concerned about with the Kings overall as a team is certainly the power play. Need to get that corrected at some point. It's going to be important as things go on. We need to talk about an honor for one of my favorite all-time Kings tonight. We'll give you the details on that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. When you are drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? Well, if you're building a talented roster, then you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job, and they'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post it. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. And that's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. The LA Kings face the Montreal Canadiens Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search LA Kings. Congratulations to former Kings captain and two-time Stanley Cup winner Dustin Brown. He is being inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame tonight in Boston. Obviously, one of the greatest Kings in franchise history. The number 23 hanging in the rafters at Crypto.com Arena. Of course, he's got the statue outside as well. I'm not sure that Dustin is a hockey Hall of Famer. He's one of those guys that had a very, very good career, but I think the Hockey Hall of Fame is for the greats of the game. And I don't know that Dustin was ever, in his era considered one of the top, 20 players in the NHL, but certainly a tremendous career, an all-time King great, and absolutely deserving of being in the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Of course, this not only includes his NHL career, but also his international play for Team USA as well. Played in a couple of different Olympics, won a silver medal for the U.S. in the games in Vancouver in 2010, represented the U.S. in multiple international events. Of course, in his NHL career, over 1,296 games. That's seventh all-time by any U.S.-born player. Also, the second American captain to ever win the Stanley Cup. And I got to believe the first American captain to win multiple Stanley Cups. But Dustin Brown was one of my all-time favorite LA Kings. I've always loved those players who are kind of well-rounded, who, can score goals, but also have that physical edge as well. And Dustin Brown certainly had that, one of the all-time great hitters of any U.S.-born player in hockey history. Of course, never forget his hit on Henrik Sedin in the 2012 Stanley Cup playoffs that helped the Kings to knock out the President's Trophy winners in the first round of the playoffs on to the Kings' first Stanley Cup in franchise history. Obviously, Dustin Brown had a huge hand in that. There was the issue with him losing the captaincy to Anze Kopitar. I still have never really understood what that move was all about, but Dustin Brown, and we talked about it a little bit when he was honored by the LA Kings. The way he handled that whole situation, the way he showed, I'm sure, being the competitor that he is, that was a difficult pill to swallow, but Dustin Brown was always about the team, never about himself, and he handled that situation by putting the team first and putting his team second. But I'm sure that wasn't an easy thing for him to handle. We've talked about it, though, before. His friendship with Anze Kopitar certainly made that kind of an easier transition. But when you think of the Kings winning the Stanley Cup, the first thing that comes to my mind is Dustin Brown putting that cup over his head. He certainly was well-deserving, was a great captain for the Kings, a great LA King, and a great U.S. NHL player. Again, congratulations to Dustin Brown on being inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, which is going on, I think, right now as we speak, at least as we're recording this in Boston. For you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked on LA Kings every day, coming up on Thursday, we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into the Kings as they are now a quarter of the way into the 2023-24 season. Kind of look at how the season has gone so far. Has it lived up to expectations? The answer is yes. We'll also preview Thursday's game in Montreal, where the Kings are going to look to keep that road record perfect and grab sole possession of that record of most wins on the road to start a season. And then, of course, on Friday, we'll have our weekly Kings fan feedback show and also a recap of the Kings Canadians game. If you want to get an email in for that show, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. We'd also love for you to stay connected with the show by following us on X or Twitter and Instagram as well. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great day. We'll talk to you on Thursday. And as always, go Kings go.